everybody. Good morning. How are y'all doing today?
Hey.
Good. So my name is Emma Harrison. I'm the Programs Coordinator with the Montana World Affairs Council. And I have the pleasure of introducing our wonderful speaker, Corrina Grace. She is the co-founder of an organization called S.E.R.E.S, which works out of Guatemala as well as in El Salvador. S.E.R.E.S stands for Social Equity, Resilience, and Ecosystem Sustainability. You guys are going to get into kind of what that means a little bit more once she gets talking. The organization has trained, the goal of the organization is to empower and educate young people about creating sustainable communities, and they've done that training with almost 3,000 young people in Guatemala and El Salvador, which is pretty incredible. So I would like to invite Corrina to speak with you all this morning. Enjoy.
So, before I get started, I'm so excited to be here and to see. This is my first time in Montana, and I'm not from the US. I don't get to come here much, but I'm so so excited to see it. So I would love, as a little introduction, if first in Hayes Lodge Pearl, someone can tell me in 30 seconds what you saw as you came to school this morning. What does it look like outside? I don't know, you don't have a window to look at. What does it look like out there?
It's cold! It's cold!
It's cold? Like what?
Like 40, 38 or 40.
Well, 42
Okay.
degrees.
Okay,
What,
great.
what are we probably going to get tonight?
Right?
No.
No,
Some
tonight.
snow tonight.
Oh, nice. I was hoping it would snow here in Missoula because I hardly ever get to see snow, but maybe you guys will get it instead. And what's out the window remind me of the name of the school?
Stanford.
Stanford. What's out the window? What can you see? There's someone up the front there. They've got a checked shirt on. What's your name?
Steven.
Okay, Stephen, what did you see on your way to school this morning?
Not much. It's cold outside.
Oh.
Tell them what you saw.
Trees, moose, deer. I'm not from here.
No, I didn't see any deer or moose. There's not many moose around here.
Okay.
Can you give her a little picture? Some birds. Give her a
Right.
little picture of Stanford.
What does it look like?
Well, there's trees. Doesn't have any leaves on them.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. This means I'm going to pick on you for the rest of the hour that we're together. You know that. So,
right.
this is before I get started. So we work, as Emma said, we work in Guatemala and El Salvador. All of our work is with folks just like you, with youth. And this is absolutely the favorite thing that I do, is getting to run workshops. I have to confess, I hardly ever stand up in front of a PowerPoint presentation talking one way. We normally do all of our stuff through games and play and really good experiential activities. We can't do that today, but I promised our youth in Guatemala that we were going to do one activity that we always do down there, because we're recording it, and we're going to show them you doing the same activity. Can you help me with this one? It's really easy. It's going to take like 1 minute, but I need you all to participate because there is hundreds of young people that are going to watch this down in Central America. Can you help me out? Yeah? Yeah, we can do it. Okay, you need to all stand up. Stand up, stand up. It's really, really simple. And I'm going to do it too, and I'm watching you, so you have to do it. All we're going to do, look, he's going to the back of the classroom. He doesn't want to be picked on. Okay? So we're just going to count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then your foot. Let's see. Oh, there it is. You got to shake your foot. You don't have to get that high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're going to bang on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to do 4, 3, 2, 1. And you all have to count with me. Okay? And I want to hear which school does it louder. Okay? Which school can do it louder? Ready? So, which does it louder, which does it better? Ready? Let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on, buzzer. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where are you? 1, 2. Hayes Lodge pole. You're gonna do it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 1. Stanford. Way to go, Stanford. I think you got that one. Hey, it's Lodgepole. I think you get the movie prize. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to some of these facilitators that do these crazy games via the PowerPoints that we have in just a second. We can see them here. And these are the kind of activities we do to get young people involved in taking actions in their community to make their communities more sustainable, resilient places and vibrant places for young people to live. And so next time maybe we'll work out how we can have ropes going between the cameras and do this thing. But before I do, Emma said a little bit about what S.E.R.E.S does. Let me see how this works. And I want to get you to help me unpack this. So S.E.R.E.S uses transformative sustainability leadership that is creating a movement of young people leading the transition towards a better future. What does that mean? Right? It's a whole lot of words. Not really sure. So together, I'd like to see if we can work it out. And I need to be able to, lots of interaction because we have
Okay.
Kathleen is on the whiteboard. So first of all, who can tell me, what does sustainability mean to you? What do we know about sustainability? Can jump out. Let's go with Hayes Lodgepole. This is what you get for the booby prize. Oh,
Hey.
what's sustainability?
Regina's shy, she's in the back.
Okay, can you, just an idea.
Make something last.
Make something
Last. Make it
last, okay. Make something last. What else? Any ideas from the other schools? What's sustainability?
Keep things stable.
Keep things stable, okay. What else? What kind of things?
Hold up.
I'll give an example of what could be sustainable.
Hold on.
Sustainable energy.
Wait. Sustainable energy. We're
Okay.
on.
To keep energy resources sustainable. What else are we thinking about?
Sustainability. The ability is to stand. Be supported something. The ability to sustain.
The ability to sustain. Okay. Stephen, what does Stanford think? What is sustainability?
To keep things stable.
Keep things stable. What things?
Strong.
Everything.
Everything. Okay. I have a nephew. When he was a 6-year-old nephew that said, "It's enough for everyone forever." And I actually think that's kind of one of the coolest, easiest definitions, right? There's enough for everyone forever. If you break it down, and I think I saw some people up the back in Hayes Lodge that were Googling it. Right? No, it's not his.
He's Lodgepole.
Hayes Lodgepole.
Yes.
Hayes Lodgepole, sorry guys. So here we can have a look. When we're talking about sustainability and sustainable development, we're talking about ecological. So it sounded like there was a bunch of animals and birds and trees outside where you guys are. Ecological sustainability. We're also talking about social sustainability. So social sustainability is around looking at communities and our societies that are peaceful, that are equitable, where there is well-being for everybody. We're also looking over on that side about economic sustainability, right? So we can continue to buy our food or to support ourselves or pay for the energy. And also political sustainability, which isn't often included. And there's a bunch of, if you do research, you can see a bunch of different definitions. But I always think of the political part of it. These are the customs and the laws and the cultures that tie it all together. Okay, so S.E.R.E.S is looking at, if we go back to our definition, okay, transformative sustainability leadership. So working towards creating societies and cultures that are sustainable, taking all of this into account. Let's go with the next one. Leading a transition towards a better future. So what is, anyone going to tell me what does a transition mean?
One thing to another.
Going from one thing to another. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going a transition towards a better future. It means that where we are now perhaps isn't that good. So help me unpack this a little bit. What do you think is happening in our societies? What do you as young folks see happening in our societies today that would make us think maybe we need to transition? Any ideas?
Presidency.
What's that?
Presidency.
Presidency, politics, government. Yeah, we're writing it down. And what else? What else is going on? What are you seeing around you?
Wow, what is that? Water is life. Yeah.
What's that?
You can ask him to repeat.
Can you repeat that one? We missed it.
Dakota Access Pipeline. Dakota Access Pipeline.
The
The
pipeline.
pipeline. Okay, tell me more about that. That's a fantastic response. Tell me more. What about that pipeline that you're seeing that you're not liking?
Water is life.
Sorry?
Pipeline could pollute the river if it leaks.
Okay. The pipeline. And what is that pipeline transporting?
Oil.
Oil. Okay, is oil a sustainable resource? Yeah? No.
It's gone.
Is oil
Is a sustainable resource.
No,
Because
Stanford.
it runs out.
No, because it runs out.
Let's do let's do a thumbs up or thumbs down for everybody. We can do a quick poll. If you think it's sustainable, thumbs
Okay.
up.
Did you hear that? We're going to do a poll. If we think oil is a sustainable resource, thumbs up. And if we don't, thumbs down. We've got some. Okay.
Interesting.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to go Stanford. Why do you think it's a sustainable resource? They're changing their mind. Hang on.
Let's choose one person in Stanford, and then one person is Hayes Lodgepole as our speaker. And I believe, Montana Academy. Did you just join us?
No.
Maybe they did. Montana Academy. We don't want to forget about you, so we'll call on you after Hayes Lodgepole and Stanford, and you can give us your answers as well.
Fantastic. So, who from Hayes Lodgepole can tell us very briefly, why you think it's not a sustainable resource?
Why it's not?
Michaela's
Yeah.
talking back row.
Can you come up? Please come up here.
Right there. Get up there.
So just tell somebody to say what she said.
What did you say? She's a little bit shy. What? It runs out. It runs
Oil
out.
runs out, so it's not sustainable.
It runs out, so it's not renewable, right? So we cannot sustain it over time, okay? Non-renewable? Great, thank you. And Stanford, what about some of your thoughts? Stephen, who's that lovely lady sitting behind you?
This one?
Yeah.
That's Trinity.
So, okay, Trinity, is it?
Yeah.
Great. Can you share with us what your thoughts are? I can't remember. I think you were thumbs up and then you went thumbs down. So you're not sure, which is fine. What are some of the things you think, Trinity?
You had your thumb up. She asked if oil was sustainable. You put your thumb up. Did you have any thoughts to share?
Why did you think that, Trinity? I was just following her.
We were lying, apparently.
Anyone else from Stanford that would maybe like to share what they think?
Brody!
Yeah, Brody.
Brody!
Caitlin.
Brody's put his thumb up. You put your thumb up?
Caitlin.
Oil's good.
Caitlin. Go up there. Come on.
Can you tell me more about that?
Bryce, it's your birthday, do it.
I don't know what to say.
Keeps your car running? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think you
keeps the motors going.
Okay. Okay.
That's
is
about
good.
it.
Okay. Thank you. And then what was the other school?
The Montana Academy. Montana Academy, do you have a thought on that? Oil. Sustainable, not sustainable, positive, negatives.
Are they there? How do we know?
I think they're muted. I see that they're on the screen, but I believe that they are muted.
Can you folks unmute?
You could put it in chat too.
Yeah, you can also put it in the chat on the computer. There's a chat function, and then we'll see what you're typing. So let's go ahead and go on, and then we'll.
Okay, so this is a good example, right? And so this is one of the reasons actually why I really love working in the area of sustainability, because we do not have, it's not a black and white answer. The Dakota Access Pipeline is a really relevant theme right now in the US, and it covers all of these things. Let's go back to this thing about sustainable development. So it is looking at ecological sustainability. There are folks that are concerned about what could happen if there was a spill, and also what happens in the putting in of this pipeline, right? There's a question around social sustainability. There are some folks that think, okay, this is going to help us run our cars, and they're really supporting that. And there are other people saying, no, this is not okay for us. This is going through our tribal lands, or this is going through our lands, and we don't feel comfortable with it. We also, I think it has become quite a political issue in many, many ways. And I know that at a governmental level in the United States, and I don't work here that much, but I know that the United States has some commitments on an intergovernmental level to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, right? And so burning oil produces greenhouse gas emissions. So what is it that the government has to do around these issues? And then we also have here it is, economic sustainability, right? So some people are saying, well, this is going to give us jobs. This is cheap source of fuel to keep my car running. I don't have anything else. And there are other people saying, well, actually, if we rely on on petroleum and it runs out, then what are we going to do? And petroleum was also a really good example. So thanks for bringing it up, because if we look at our current systems and cultures as a society, we rely really heavily on petroleum in many, many forms. I can see, just looking at these two screens, a whole bunch of things that are made out of petroleum. Anyone's got an idea of things there that are made out of petroleum? The table, the water bottle, the chairs, probably some of the fabrics. Yep, plastic bottle down there. How did all that get to where you guys are, right? It was transported in cars and trucks that use diesel and gas. You're probably sitting in a heated classroom that likely the heating comes from that. And so what I always find really curious as well in this, just unpacking this, is we have things, I don't have one here, but we also use things in everyday life, such as plastic bags, that we use once and we throw away. So we have this resource that's limited, and we know that the using of this resource causes environmental contamination, right? And it does some really important functions, like heating our buildings and bringing us out food and transport. And it's used in medical devices, to save lives. But we also use that same resource in something like a plastic bag, and then we throw it away, and off it goes into the environment, never to be used again. So it's a really great avenue to enter this concept of sustainability and think, okay, what do we need to do to transition our current lifestyles off this limited resource, and to find a way that we can use things that aren't damaging the environment or the contaminating air or contaminating water, but are creating a future and a planet that I want my kids to live in, and my grandkids and generations to come. So, and speaking just quickly on transition, yesterday I was listening to a TED Hour podcast, which is a really neat podcast from TED Talks. And the guy that was talking said, in the last 50 years, so in the last one person's lifetime, we have doubled the number of people on the planet. We have tripled our use of food and water, and we have quadrupled our use of fossil fuels. Right? Have we increased the number of planets we have to get all this from and to put all this on? Anyone moved to Mars yet? No. right? So right, this is the challenge we're facing. We are facing this exponential growth in our society, and yet what we're depending on for that growth is actually a limited resource, and that's causing some issues. And Ban Ki-moon, who is the Secretary General of the United Nations, they were talking about how we need to, as a global civilization, start to look at a transition towards sustainability. And they've put out a plan, and we're going to talk about that later on, called the Sustainable Development Goals. What he says is, okay, this is the plan. There is no plan B because there's no planet B. So, just very briefly, here is some of the impacts of what happens when we're not living sustainably. And so right now, our planet, and I travel around a lot for my work, and what I'm seeing, and even here in Montana, later on we're going to talk about how there's impacts here in Montana, but what we see is more and more that the systems, the air, water, and land systems, which all of us, as far as I know, depend on for survival, and they're getting more and more contaminated. And what happens is it tends to be the most vulnerable people, marginalized folks in Guatemala, that means our indigenous communities, that are paying the price or having to live with the impacts of a vulnerable planet. Sustainable Development Goals, I'm going to put up here very briefly, but this is the plan that at the United Nations level, all 192 member states, including the US, signed up to say, we are going to make this happen because we need to make it happen because, as Ban Ki-moon said, we don't have another planet. So we all have a commitment to start working towards these goals. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how young people are doing that. So why, and you guys should be able to answer this one really easily, why is S.E.R.E.S focusing on young people? Why youth? Why you guys? Tell me.
Spread the knowledge.
We're the future.
Because you're the future? Okay. Yes, you are. Why else?
We can change what happens.
You can change what happens? You can make a difference? Yeah. You can. I mean, I work with youth. Youth are the ones that are leading social innovation wherever we look, whether it's technology or it's changes or it's movements, right? There's often young people that are there agitating. Because young folks, they look around and they ask hard questions and they propose new answers and they innovate and they create. But not just that, you are the future, but you are also more than 50% of the people on the planet. We have never had so many youth. There are more youth on the planet now than ever before. That means not only you're the future, but you're also the present. Because what you decide, your actions, your decisions, are going to influence life on the planet now and for the future generations to come. Are there folks in the room that are thinking about when you graduate going to college or university? Show of hands? Yeah? Okay. So 80% of decision makers in community, government, and private sector, 80% of them are in higher education. So these are the people who are deciding how we're going to do this transition, if we're going to do it fast enough, if we're going to build the Dakota Access Pipeline, how else we do it. And so we believe in S.E.R.E.S that youth absolutely hold the solution and are the key to building a better and more sustainable world. And finally, leadership. What do we know about leadership? What happened? What do you think about when you think about leadership? Help me unpack it.
Obama.
There's always followers.
What was
Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
I heard
Okay.
Obama. I heard Donald Trump. I heard moving forwards.
Okay, Obama, Donald Trump moving forward. What else? Stanford?
Captains of the football team.
Yeah.
Seniors.
Seniors. Okay. So
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. Okay. All right. So this is. I remember when I was about your age too, and people would say, "Tell me about leadership," and I would like list off these names of these great, amazing people. And so to me, leadership or being a leader always seemed like this kind of exclusive elite concept, right? Like here are these people and they're way up there, and I'm never ever going to get up there. I don't know how to achieve that. Maybe there's only a certain number of places for leaders. But in S.E.R.E.S, what we really believe is that it's not about one or two leaders. It's about a leaderful generation. And we talk about leadership as being a verb, right? It means doing. And a lot of our leaders are not doing. So we talk about and teach leadership as the way that I walk and work in the world. And am I doing that with integrity and compassion and inclusion? And am I doing that conscious not just of now but of future generations? And so leadership for us, and we talk about in our work, we talk about unlikely leaders. You know, the folks that didn't go to the best schools, that didn't get to have all the opportunities, but they are people really in the countries where we work that are on the front lines, that are facing economic and environmental challenges. And despite that, they are leading the way. And so we are working to create this movement of unlikely leaders that are showing perhaps the leaders in our political spaces how we need to do this transition. So thank you for helping me with that. I would like to start by sharing with you, and I'm doing as best I can. What I really want to do is connect you guys with our leaders in Central America, because that is where I think the magic happens, is when young people get to come together. So I want to share with you a statement that was written by our youth leaders in Guatemala and El Salvador at the beginning of the year that they would like that I can share with you. And then we're going to talk about the work that they're doing, and then perhaps how you could also think about this similar work in Montana. So S.E.R.E.S is a network of youth leaders, inspired, empowered, and equipped to lead the transition towards a more peaceful, just, and sustainable society in Central America. S.E.R.E.S youth leaders are the unlikely leaders on the front lines of enormous political, social, environmental, and economic changes, making a stand for justice and equality for people and the planet. They are brave, courageous, bold, passionate, and committed. United under the phrase Somos S.E.R.E.S, which means we are S.E.R.E.S, these young people are part of a family that crosses traditional boundaries of race, class, culture, politics, wealth, race, and religion. Activators, change makers, movers and shakers, empowered with their own sense of agency and desire to create change, these young people are changing the status quo. So I want to introduce you to these guys. Here you can see them on the screen. Before I do, I just want to share a little bit about Guatemala. I live in Guatemala, and it is this very beautiful and vibrant country. It has a very large indigenous population. There are 22 ethnic groups, 22 indigenous languages spoken in addition to Spanish. And is actually part of, I can use this. It is part of the world's 5th largest biodiversity hotspot, which means that it has a huge abundance of plants and animals, and it is located, I move across.
Point to the center.
Point to the center. So here we have Mexico, and we have Guatemala. We actually work in Guatemala and El Salvador, and Honduras is where we're hoping to move in the next 5 years. And these countries are part of what is called the Northern Triangle. So the Northern Triangle has been facing an increasing crisis in the last few years. If you have a look here, we have, there. This is Guatemala. So here is 60% of the population in Guatemala live below the poverty line, 32% in El Salvador. And this region of the world, known as the Northern Triangle, has seen more deaths in the last 10 years than during all of the civil wars in these countries during the 80s, from crime and violence. It is actually a region of the world that has just recently been identified as one of the most vulnerable in terms of long-term climate risk. So Honduras is the most vulnerable country in the world, Guatemala's number 10, El Salvador's number 15. So what that means is that as the climate changes, things such as droughts or heavy rainfall means that farmers lose their crops. And when these farmers are living in poverty and they rely on that crop for their food, then what we are seeing happening is loss of livelihood and loss of life. because if they don't have money in the bank and they don't have a credit card, and if that crop doesn't give them what they need to eat for that year, then they don't eat. And so more and more we're seeing either impacts in farming and agriculture, and most of these communities we work with are subsistence farming communities. We're also seeing that these vulnerable communities, which build their villages in areas where they probably wouldn't if they had better access to land. And so we have a number of youth that are involved with us because they lost their family home due to a landslide during Tropical Storm Agatha. One of our youth lost her brother during a freak rain, which is becoming more and more frequent. And so this is a region of the world where we see both vulnerable planet and vulnerable people and a great need to do something. It's also a region of the world with a really high youth population. So more than 52% of the population in these countries is under 25 years of age. Remember youth of the future? These are the ones that are really going to face what happens as the climate changes and as they're trying to deal with the vulnerabilities that are in their country. And finally, for these youth, I just want to share that 1 in 5 adolescents are neither in school, oops, I'm going to step on something, neither in school nor employed. So for these young people that we work with facing a future of crime, violence, lack of educational economic opportunities, for many of them, contemplating a future at home is contemplating a future without hope. And so we work with these folk to try and say, how can we build a different story? And just very quickly, I'll share this one. I was wondering if this exists for Montana or for the US. So this is called the Social Inclusion Index. And it measures things, not just GDP, but it's also measuring things such as political rights and civil rights and women's rights. And you can see the countries where we're working are right down the bottom. Really high rates of illiteracy, lack of opportunities, particularly for Indigenous youth and women. And so we are working with that population that live in places like this. Remember I said it was like the 5th largest biodiversity hotspot? But the environmental degradation that's happening, the rivers that are drying up, are causing a lot of hardship. And so where those vulnerable people are meeting a vulnerable planet, this is what life looks like. So we asked ourselves a question when we started working there. How can we take this really young population, which is the future of the region, and how can we turn this problem into a solution and really engage with young people so that they can work to tackle these problems that are facing their communities? This is how we did it. Education, action, and building a network. So this is what we believe is the recipe to help young people lead this transition. And we believe that this recipe works not just in Central America, but all across the world, because if our youth can do it, anyone can.
I'm wondering if we could just pause. You just showed us quite a few pretty staggering statistics and also images. I'm curious if anybody has any questions from either Hayes Lodgepole or comments from Stanford or from the Montana Academy about.
And have we got Montana Academy there?
We do, and they're on chat with us. So
great.
Yeah.
We're not muted anymore. Any questions?
What's the worst environment you've ever been to?
Worst environment.
What's the worst environment? Let me go back to this one. I took this photo. Right? So this is not necessarily the worst environment, but when I saw a little boy that was living in this, and this is coming out of a forest, right? So there is no trash collection in most communities in Guatemala. And so what people do is they just go and drop it into the nearest canyon. You know, and a canyon normally is the watershed for rivers, and so that has this huge impact. But this one really got me because there was all sorts of horrible, horrible things burning, and this little boy that was playing on this trash pile.
What are the local effects of change?
What are the local effects of change? You mean change that youth are doing, or change as in climate change?
Guys, in climate change.
So I mentioned the rainfalls. That is a really big one. So what's happening with rainfall is that where this photo is taken actually is where one of our youth that I want to introduce you to is working. Guatemala has always had a dry corridor, so 5 departments that are in this area that doesn't get so much rain. In the last 5 years, that has gone from 5 to 12. And so what you see now is that the crops are like really, really small or they fail. So that is a really big one. So now chronic malnutrition, particularly amongst youth under 5 years of age, they don't have enough to eat. We also see more and more extreme weather, so like flash flooding. And what happens in my hometown, what's happened is that in the rainy season when it would rain, 10 years ago, it would rain at 2 o'clock every afternoon for like 5 to 6 months during the rainy season. Now what happens is we have a whole week without raining, and all the rain that would have fallen in that week falls in one night. And so trees are dying because their roots can't handle it or they get washed out. Poorer areas in many, many communities are just getting flooded. And also crops are not getting the rain they need to grow, and then they're also getting washed out. So they're probably the 2 worst things that I see. And I see this where I live, with both where I live in my community and with all the youth that we're working with.
I'm curious, just quickly, if in any of your communities you've seen any change in weather patterns or things that have affected crops or growing where you live.
What about crops?
This is interesting because I always go and I'm curious. What are you seeing in Montana?
Well, there's a lot of wheat fields.
Any changes?
The crops don't grow as big anymore either.
The crops don't grow as big. And does anyone come from a farming family? Like, do you hear your parents talking? Do you hear your parents talking about concerns?
Yeah. Our
What are
last
they
big
concerned
crop
about?
was 2011.
Last big crop was 2011.
5 years ago.
And what does that mean for you as a family?
Well, we grow cattle as well, so when we don't have as much hay to give them, then we have to go and buy it.
Okay. What else are you seeing? Anything else? Hayes Lodgepole? You guys seen anything?
Say louder. We usually have snow on the ground by this time of year, but we don't.
Okay, so there's no snow. What does it mean if if that happens? What do you think the potential implications are?
Be a hot ass. Be a bad winter.
Yeah, bad winter.
What's a bad winter?
Oh, really cold.
Really cold?
The snow coming at once and like
I've got a
flash flooding.
question. I've got a question for you because I'm going to skip ahead, but I really want to show you this photo. Has anyone seen this? Around where they are?
Looks like our mountains.
She's talking about the dark brown trees.
Yeah.
They're dying.
Those are beetles.
The beetles, right? Who can tell me about the beetles?
Over in
There's a bunch of them in the trees, and they're killing the trees.
Okay, so I saw this all across. I've just been here in Montana a few days, and I drove to Hamilton, and I drove up to Flathead Lake, and I saw this everywhere. And so I started to do some research. What's happening with the trees, and this beetle that exists is coming across not just Montana, but all the way down from Canada, and across this part of the U.S. And I was researching, and I'd love it if you guys could find some more up-to-date statistics, but it said that as of 2013, there have been 88 million acres that have been killed. So what happens when the tree...
So just a side note is that Montana Academy, this is really hitting hard in the area where they are, and they wanted to let you know that there is a lot of beetle kill up where they are right now.
Okay, and then so what is a concern to Montana Academy what is a concern if this is happening in the forest?
And it'll take them a second to write back. So
Okay, can you guys think what could be a possible concern with this?
fires.
Right?
Fires.
soil
Not as
erosion
much
is one of the things
firewood.
they say. Yep.
fires, soil erosion. As far as I know, Montana is also generally it's a place that depends on a lot of tourism for hunting and fishing, and so
Ecosystem change
Okay.
is another thing.
thank you. We got that in the chat, right? Ecosystem change. So this is a really big one that seems to be happening. And we mentioned the snow hasn't fallen yet. Does anyone know about Glacier National Park?
I do.
What
All
what
the
do you about it?
glaciers are gone.
No, they're not.
Almost gone.
Look at this. I was researching about this because I was, some of the things when I ask folks what's happening with the changes, what's going on, the snows haven't come yet, or the snows aren't as heavy. And so here's just a couple of photos I found of these glaciers. 100 years ago, there were 150 glaciers in Glacier National Park. Any idea how many there are now?
10.
Hmm?
10.
A
10.
couple more. Couple more.
15.
There's 25 left.
21. 21. 21.
20. So there's 25 glaciers that are left, and then the ones that are left, this is what they look like. Okay, so just like if the snows don't come, there's snows in this region in this area. This is our water, right, for the summer, and that flows through. And so the impacts of some of this that I was looking into is that the rivers are dropping off more in summer. The waters are also warmer, right? And that affects, what does that affect?
Fish.
That affects the fish, right? So the trout are moving upstream to try and get to colder water. Invasive species are coming into the warmer water. Also, I was looking at the fact that 80% of the water in the American West comes from the mountains. 80% of the water. So if we're thinking about our farmers growing wheat, and they're probably thinking about water, it's a really big thing, right? So if the snow doesn't come, or it's not as heavy, and we're getting not as much watershed going down, then there is a really wide patch of land that's getting impacted.
We're good, yeah.
Okay. So what do we do about it? I'm talking to the folks that are the future. What do we do?
Yeah. It's called Hayes Lodgepole. I see a few hands over
Yeah.
there.
Cycle.
Recycle? Okay. There's two lovely young ladies up the back that had their hands up, and now they've disappeared. Can you like share with us what you're thinking? What do we do about this? You could tell someone, and then the guys can shout out for us if you want.
Tell somebody and they'll say it for you.
Reduce greenhouse gases.
This whole problem.
Wow.
What's casual about it?
How do you stop global warming? You don't know that.
So it's too big a question for you to answer?
Oh, it's just so this.
Well,
May I ask how you guys feel when you hear when we talk about this and we see these images? You think about your forest and your snows. How does it make you feel?
Sad.
Sad?
Scared.
Scared?
Scared.
Okay. Stanford, how are you folks feeling?
Worried.
Worried?
Disappointed.
Disappointed? Anyone feel angry? I get really angry. Like, how did you do this to what we've got, right? Yeah? Steven, you're angry? And so this is actually not surprising, right? These are very, very normal reactions.
The Montana Academy is scared for the future. When
Montana
they see
Academy is
this.
scared for the future when they see this, right? So one of the things that's important to recognize is that everyone here is feeling the same thing, right? We are all scared and overwhelmed and angry and disappointed and sad. But there's something in that, because when we can recognize that's how we're feeling, and when I was 25 and started doing this work, my anger was my passion. That was what kept me going and kept me working and saying, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. And our sadness actually means that it's because we have great capacity to love, and we actually love what's around us, and we love the outdoors, and we don't want to lose it. You know? our fear can also be the fuel for our courage to do something. And so it's important to recognize, I think, that number one, I have not yet met a young person or worked with a young person that doesn't feel the same way, but that we learn how we can use those emotions to do something about it. And I also want to recognize up the back in Hayes Lodge Pearl, that feeling of like, this is so big, this is so overwhelming, like what could I possibly do is also very real. And so part of what we work to do with young people is to break it down from this huge, huge problem to say, hey, this is something that I can start working on to make a difference. I just want to take a pause. Like, are there questions? Are there thoughts? What do you think could happen? Have we got 15 minutes?
Yep, we do.
So
We
I
have
want to... So is there a question?
How do we reduce climate change exactly?
How do we
Reduce change.
reduce change?
They wanted to.
Okay. I want to share with you.
Yeah, and the
sorry.
Montana Academy, I'm interjecting, but they're curious to know, is like, what can we do as individuals is one of the questions that they have for you about this.
Yeah. So I have two directions I'd like to go. Part of me is inclined to share with you some, like, one or two stories of youth just like you guys that are doing stuff in a place where they probably have pretty limited access to resources and opportunities, as to show the stories that's possible, and then also share and brainstorm with you what we could do here in Montana. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Good. So let me share with you some really cool youth. So let me do this. Here what we have is a group of youth that were concerned about water. And so what they had is actually that their water is really contaminated because the black water that comes out of everyone's toilets goes straight into their river. And along with every other wastewater you can think of. And so what they decided to do is go around to schools, and they took the students in the schools out and they went and did water testing in the field. So the students were like, hey, this water is really, really filthy. And then with those results, they went to the local council and they said, hey, this is the results of the water that we have. And this causes disease and contamination, so we want to do something. So these youth started working and organizing with their local council, and then they started involving parents, and little by little they got together and started to look at how they could clean up the water, and also started to plant trees. Up the top here, these are young people from Patsun. They're Cachiquel Mayans, and their big concern is that there's so much deforestation on the hills around their community that landslides are placing a risk to their homes. And so they have been doing a whole lot of reforestation. They went and they started a nursery. So they went out into the forest, they collected the seeds, they started a nursery. The first year they got 2,000 trees, and then they have been planting those trees. They started selling them to raise money so that they continue doing more things. These are all different action plans. So we have nurseries, we have some groups so there's not always access to food for a lot of our youth, so they are starting to grow their own gardens. We have, up the top here, this young guy's name is Julio. So he's in one of those areas I was talking about where there's droughts. And so he is working on finding where all the natural springs are and getting agreements with the local council to plant trees around those springs and protect them. Here is Wilson. He's actually working against youth violence. So gang violence in El Salvador is a huge problem, and youth are the ones that are being targeted. And so he's working on education and advocacy. So talking about how we need to start to build more peace. Here's actually part of a committee that was inaugurating a peace park. So there's a whole bunch of local actions, and what's important is that we break it down into being really small things. It starts first with my own behavioral change and the change in the community around me. So thinking about this, what do you guys think we could start to do as young people in your communities? What ideas have we got?
I wonder if we could have. I wonder if everybody could turn and talk to each other for just a minute and maybe generate a few ideas, and then we'll call on one person to sort of to speak for the class, represent the class. So let's just take a few minutes, turn and talk, and then we'll come back together and be able to share those ideas.
We were hunting one day and he was talking about it, and he said, because he was like looking around, and he said that one of the things that help the forest is we need to go through and cut the trees so like young ones can grow. Because if you go to like really big trees, they
Okay, we're going to come back because apparently Stanford has to leave in 2 minutes.
Start with them, yeah.
So let's
Good question. Or so
let's.
Water.
What's that? Oh, sorry, could you repeat that?
Hey, Lodgepole, can you mute your microphone really quickly so we can hear Stanford?
I was saying, this man, we don't.
There you go.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Stanford.
go. So, if you were to look around in the forests that are around our community, there's no room for anything to grow because all of the trees, there's a lot of dead trees and it's a major fire hazard. So if we were to go through and cut them down, there would be more room for wildlife to grow, for more plants and stuff. There would be a lot more room and it'd be less of a fire hazard. So I think, yeah, and then we can get rid of like the trees and stuff like that.
So forest management and partnering, I know that there's always universities and probably local groups as well that are involved in also looking at forest management. So how could you as young people, go to those groups and say, hey, we want to get more involved in forest management. I also have to say, Stanford, I saw while you were muted that there was someone there dancing around in the background. And we actually have, there she is, we have one of our groups is a group of b-boys, breakdancing b-boys, and they wanted to use their dance to raise awareness about climate change and environmental education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, go ahead and mute them. Let's go over to Hayes Lodgepole. You'll have to unmute them.
I got it.
Okay.
Hayes Lodgepole.
Hi. We had some discussion. Spencer, you want to share?
We just wanted to say that we understand the water problem because our water around our community is polluted from the mines up in our mountains.
Yeah. And what do you think you could start to do about that?
Do our best to clean it up and get the cyanide out. Wait for it to wash down,
Yeah, it's kind of really a political issue because the water's polluted with cyanide. So I'm not sure what the students could do unless they could become maybe more politically involved in that issue.
Yeah, one of the things that we teach, I don't think I have a diagram, but we teach, it's called the wheel of transformation. So we have resist, reform, reimagine, and recreate. Okay, so resist is often saying, political protests, or saying we're not okay with this, or getting a petition. They're forms that you can start to change things. Reform means working within the existing system. So how could you change laws? Or maybe the laws exist and they're not being upheld. And then reimagine, recreate also needs that, okay, if that mine is there and it's polluting, do we need to think about either how they're dealing with their contamination Or perhaps we need to think about an alternative so that we're still providing jobs, but it's not through an industry that's polluting our water. Is that a hand? Yeah. Yeah.
What?
No, they're shy.
Oh, the mine?
Yeah.
The mine company that was working up there went bankrupt. And so they wanted to, they told them that they had to clean it up, but they're not gonna do it because they went bankrupt.
So you guys, you guys have some really big and relevant challenges, right? And part of it is as young people, how can we be really creative to look at solutions? Actually, this work, there was a group 25 years ago in Australia, and they lived on this lake, this lagoon, and they came to school one day, and all the fish floating on the top of it, everything was dead. And of course, they came to class and they were devastated, and some of them were crying, and they were everything we just talked about. They were overwhelmed. They were like, "We can't believe this has happened," and they were so upset. And so their teachers went out with them and they said, "Right, we need to start to do something." So they did water testing. They were like, "Let's check out what's in this water." They worked out that what was in the water came from a paint factory that was upstream, and they had dumped those chemicals into that stream. And so then they went around door to door and they started asking other businesses and the local community how they felt about that. They went to local council and they said, "Hey, we're researching the local environmental regulations and something needs to be done about this business." And they also made a video and they put out, this group actually won a United Nations Youth Media Award for bringing, these kind of issues to the public forum. And so just because they didn't give up and they went out and they made themselves known and they made noise, and this company eventually did have to pay to clean up that creek. But, also once it's dead, there's a lot of work to be done. So those youth got involved in bringing back species to that lagoon, and now it is fully restored. It's taken time. But it's just a story I wanted to share. It feels really overwhelming, really big, right? And especially as young folk, we're like, who are we to do something? But there are ways to do it. And if you remember, I said that there was this like education, action, and networking. And so how are we educating ourselves and learning more about what's going on? What are we actually doing? And one of the models I got, at least from when I was growing up, was I saw a lot of people who like to complain about things but didn't do anything. If we want to change, we actually have to go out there and get our hands dirty. And then this final one is networking. And so one of the things we have at our one of the tools we have that we didn't have, 10, 20 years ago is social media. So are we using both our online digital networks as well as networking within the community and with other people? And through these three things, you can actually begin to bring about change.
What is the Montana Academy?
Montana Academy is talking about planting trees around campus, removing beetle kill, local food production through gardens, and reusing materials to eliminate waste.
Can Hazel Paul hear that, or do we?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can go ahead and introduce you.
Okay, so the Montana Academy was planting trees around their school.
Yep.
Local
Removing beetle kill.
removing beetle kill.
Yep.
School gardens.
School gardens.
And reusing materials.
And reusing materials.
And reusing materials. Okay, great. So there's really a whole bunch of different things, and it's kind of our ideas and creativity which we need to put to work. I want to just see, the remaining time, are there any other questions that we have?
How do you think we could stop the pollution of our water?
How do you-
What do as students to get out and start making a change?
Let's see, what ideas have you got? And maybe, does Montana
Academy have some
Academy
ideas?
have any
Yeah.
ideas? Let's see, Montana Academy, what can they do in Hayes Lodge Pole to start to protect their water resources? What do you know about the local laws around protection? Do we?
So,
It's on state land.
what she's saying is that you could research the local laws and see, and they have provided cleanup in the past. Possibly they can come back and the government needs to come in and do something. Because we all have bottled water. We don't drink the water here.
I did notice.
So,
Everyone drinks bottled water.
so, the Montana Academy says that you could make it known and publicize it a little bit more, but then also educate the surrounding communities as well about this issue.
So these are really great strategies, right? So raising awareness, and that means that you start to build up how many people there are, and that also becomes a force for change, right? Because politicians don't normally just do things because they feel like it. They do it because there's a whole pressure of people in a democracy where we are representing, the politicians are representing our voices. There's a whole pressure of people saying, hey, things have got to change. And so how do you start to do that? So going out, talking, and one of the great things you guys could do is go and start knocking on doors and asking people in the community, how do you feel about this? You know, do you feel okay that we have to buy water and buying that water is causing further contamination? And just start to build a dialogue. And as we build a community dialogue, you're going to have more and more people that are interested in creating change.
Maybe you guys could do some water testing. Different places we could ask
We did
Mr.
before
Dozo.
that.
Yeah. I think you sparked an interest.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Well, we are just about out of time, everybody, and I want to thank Corrina Grace so much for coming and joining us. Oh,
Connect them
oh,
together, Corrina and their issues. Connect the two of them.
what do you, can you come over and tell me what you're talking? Come. Here comes
One of the
Kathleen.
suggestions, just as you leave, is
Yeah.
keeping the connection going
Absolutely.
between you guys and Corrina's organization.
Absolutely.
I think that would be wonderful.
And yeah, if there's one thing I just want to say to you is you know, the task at hand is not small, but I have seen so many incredible things of young people just like yourselves achieving great change over the last 8-9 years that I've been doing this, that I absolutely believe that you can do it and you will be the ones to do it. No one else is going to do it. Right? So
Thank you very much.
I am going to share my contact details, which are here.
I will send those out to you as well.
Yeah, and I will put my personal email on there as well. And any of the tools, any of the thinking, any of the, at all, if you have questions that you want to ask, please feel free to do so. Okay, and thank you so much for your time. It was great to see you and chat with you.
Thanks very much.